Hello everyone, I'm Rob of Rob and Bay channel here again, and I recently had this experience at Abhayagiri, the place where I formerly lived as a monk, where a friend of a friend was introduced to me, and it was mentioned that I used to be a monk there at the monastery, and this person asked me, well, why did you disrobe? And I was candid and told them that I wanted to have a girlfriend, find a relationship. And her reaction to that was what it was that I had even gotten out of ordaining. Disrobing for a woman to find a relationship? What was even the point? And she was half kidding, but definitely half serious. And I gave it some thought later, like, what did I get out of ordaining? And spoiler alert, I did not gain any of the stages of enlightenment, obviously, but I feel like I definitely did gain some benefit from having been a monastic for almost 10 years. And that is what this video is about. So I've organized some of my thoughts into like rough categories. And the first thing that I would mention is I definitely developed a sort of evenness of temper in that before I ordained, I was never really someone to yell and raise my voice, but I would definitely get very angry, like when I had disagreements with someone to the point where I would like just be like shaking. I'd be so angry sometimes. And as a monk living in a monastery, you are inevitably sometimes living with people who you would not always choose to be around or be friends with. And I'll bring up one example in particular. In Thailand, there was this somewhat senior monk at a monastery that I was staying at, and he was kind of like an exemplar of everything to not do as a monk, like how to not be as a monk. And I definitely found him grating and annoying, but like the things he said never like gave rise to any real anger. Like even when he would come at me and like be raising his voice and kind of getting in my face a bit, I never felt angry with him. Definitely annoyed, but never like actual anger. I never really like talked back to him that much. Whereas if I had been a layperson, I would have definitely gotten very angry with him. Definitely would have been like shaking with anger and would have probably said some stupid stuff as well. And just in general, having to deal with interpersonal conflict. Maybe this is just like a standard adulting ability that everyone, or a lot of people, develop eventually anyway. But I found that living in the monastery with people who were difficult, who you might not want to be around, just making yourself okay with them, being able to look past their faults. When disagreements arose, just being able to let go, and then the next time you saw them, you just have to move on. And I feel like that's definitely a skill that I developed, and I owe that skill to my time in the monastery. Something else that I feel I got out of my time in the monastery is an ability to adjust to new circumstances and adjust to difficult circumstances. So I'm someone who, before I went to ordain, I was very attached to like living in a certain way and having certain things, like just on the most basic and mundane level. Food, like I was super picky about food. I didn't eat any fruits, basically no vegetables, like for a long time before going to the monastery. So I was super picky about food. And I get to the monastery, and unless you were just going to eat like rice and nothing else, then I quickly found that I had to eat stuff that I didn't really care for. And I found that, oh, I actually can force myself to eat this stuff. Oftentimes, what wasn't that bad. Turned out I actually liked fruit. But being in a situation where I'm forced to go against my preferences definitely developed this willingness to be in situations where I am uncomfortable with something, where I might not like how something is, and just trust myself to be able to adapt to it and just get over myself and my dislikes. And then also just adapting to difficult circumstances. So in the monastery, you don't necessarily get all that much sleep, and I'm not someone who can get by on a small amount of sleep, like less than 6 hours, less than 5 hours. So I was oftentimes basically in a state of sleep deprivation. And the show must go on. You still have to do everything you're expected to do. You still get up early in the morning, do your chanting, do your meditation, do your alms round or the work period or whatever, and go through your day tired, and just not complaining about that, and just doing it every day, just manning up and showing up. That's definitely a skill. Perhaps that's something that you could also gain, like from the military, I suppose. But I gained it from the monastery, and I think that's actually quite valuable. Just trusting myself that, oh yeah, I can handle this. This isn't a big deal. I didn't get enough sleep last night, and I still have to go to work for a full 8 hours. It's fine. Yeah, it's not a big deal. Also, on the subject of adjusting to new circumstances. So, as a monk, the kutis at Abhayagiri are pretty nice. But when you go to Thailand in a forest monastery, it's kind of a different experience. The kutis are much simpler. They aren't as nice. It's hot. And I wasn't really sure that I could deal with that. And then just like a day or two passes, and then suddenly it just feels like, oh, this is normal and it's fine and it doesn't bother me in the least. And then when I had the opportunity to go stay somewhere deep in a forest where I was just living out on a bamboo platform under a mosquito net, and like the best bathroom in the place was basically just like some like zinc sheets put up, and you're sort of still exposed to mosquitoes and stuff. I wasn't sure I could deal with that. But then, sure enough, after a day or two, I adjusted and it just became normal, and suddenly I was fine with my circumstances, with my surroundings. And I definitely took that with me into the lay world, where trying to adjust to things and get a life going again, I sometimes found myself in places and circumstances that I'd rather not be, but I had the confidence that, well, I just live like this for a short time and then it'll become normal. It's not going to bother me. And sure enough, that happened every time. One of the more transformative benefits that I gained from my time as a monk, I would say, was an increase of faith in things like karma and rebirth and nibbana, and even things like devas and stuff like that. And that's a pretty big deal for someone who comes from a background of being militantly atheist, like thinking that religion is stupid and rebirth nonsense, utter nonsense. It's just this world and what you can see was it. So that was my background. And obviously I did ordain as a monk, so I had gained some faith in like karma and rebirth as like a working hypothesis, like, okay, maybe, because it makes sense in the grand scheme of the Buddhist teachings. But then once I met Ajahn Dan and went to stay with him, and Ajahn Dan being someone who is very serious about the rules for monks, I can't imagine him ever lying, and I especially can't imagine him lying about his own experiences with certain things. And hearing him talk convincingly about his experience with like seeing his own past lives, seeing other beings being reborn, seeing other realms of existence, that was convincing for me. And that definitely gave rise to a lot of faith. which carried me through for quite a few years when being a monk was hard. Just having that faith that was kind of planted and nourished by just being around Ajahn Tan. And that does continue with me to this day as a layperson. I never lost faith in Buddhism. It's more like I just lost faith in myself to continue as a monk. On a more mundane level, but no less important, from Lumpal Pasano, I say I got like an appreciation of being of service, because Lumpal Pasano, who was the former abbot of Abhayagiri, also the former abbot of Wat Ba Nanachat in Thailand, he's just like made himself available to monks and lay people for decades upon decades, and seeing himself put himself out there for like hours a day, just making himself available to people, just being of service to the community, was inspiring. And I'm someone who definitely preferred just doing what I had to do and then going back to my kuti, like my time was my time. But Lumpal Pasano definitely emphasized like the service aspect of monasticism. So that's a big part of being at Abhayagiri. So I got into that, being willing to let go of my own wants and desires and just be of service to the people around me, help out. So it like helped lessen my selfish tendencies. And this is something that as a layperson, maybe you have to be careful about, because if you have like this service mindset, like you want to be of service to the people around you, then you can definitely get taken advantage of. You have to have some wisdom here. But it definitely helps you in your relationships. People like someone who's willing to help them out, who will be there for them. At work, obviously your boss and your coworkers like someone who they can count on and rely on. And that mindset of wanting to be of service has definitely benefited me as a layperson. And I think the reason why I found myself in such a good situation after leaving the monastery and being totally uncertain of what would happen is because I was always willing to just trust myself that I could adjust to things around me. I could handle it. I would be fine. My mental state would be fine. And wherever I was at in work or with friends or whatever, I was always looking to help, to make myself as useful as possible. So my current happiness, my like evenness of temper, my even emotional state, my success in the lay life, I attribute a lot of that to my time as a monk at Abhayagiri and in Thailand. So I didn't gain any stage of enlightenment, but if asked, what did I gain out of ordaining? I gained a lot. It was pretty darn useful for me. And as an addendum, I would like to say that sometimes it comes across more in other videos. I feel like in this video I've been pretty good about it. You might be able to tell that I do still have a bit of a stutter. Comes out more in the videos. It used to come out a lot more in regular everyday conversation. Like I was terrified of speaking in public. I was terrified of picking up a phone, like at any time as a layperson before I went to the monastery. If I had to call someone on a phone, I would ask my mom to make the call for me. And like if I had to call a store to find out if they had something and my mom wasn't available, I'd be willing to just drive to the store and find out they didn't have that thing rather than having to pick up the phone and talk to someone. During my time as a monk, I had to act as the guest monk, where I had to talk to new people coming into the monastery and give them an orientation. So I was frequently forced to interact with new people and give like this spiel on various subjects, introducing them to things. And my greatest arch nemesis, the phone, I had to answer the phone. Like I had to leave messages for people. And at first that was terrifying. But my almost year as guest monk pretty much saw me put an end to my stutter. It still comes out a bit in Thai for some reason, but I find that in English my stutter is pretty much gone. And that's actually something that's pretty life-changing, to be honest. Like anyone who's ever had a stutter can attest that it's something that can weigh heavily on you. And the fact that the monastery helped me get over that is massive. I mean, like transformative. I mean, hell, like even if it was like just like if the only thing I got out of the monastery after almost 10 years was that I don't stutter anymore, like that by itself would be worth it. Not that there's anything wrong with stuttering. If you stutter, it's fine. No one thinks that much about it. But for me, like, it was a big deal. So that's it for this video. If anyone is interested in hearing about how I got going again, like as a layperson, after having been a monk for so long, then please let me know in the comments below, and I'd be happy to talk about that. So yeah. Oh, and if you'd like to hear about my life as a monk, then there's a video about that as well. So please like and subscribe, comment below if you have anything to say, and see you next time. Bye.